I often say that in the midst of all of the hope that we have is that in the midst of the chaos, the text, the Bible from the beginning to the end is just one big story of God bringing order to chaos. Yeah. That means just one big story of that is when it starts off with, the Spirit is hovering over the deep and there's these waters. Then all of a sudden he let there be light and boom, 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 boom. You go from that all the way to Revelations and it's Jesus coming in to do all these different things. And it's just bringing, and then Revelation, a new earth, new heaven. It's just this constant idea of him going, here's chaos. Now let me bring order to it. Here's a mess. Let me turn it into a miracle in a sense, right? Yeah. Beauty, from ashes. All these, don't get me started. I'm not gonna go there. But with all of that being said, it's like, I often say that in the midst of all of the chaos, the hope that we have is that there is a God that we can trust is moving all of the pieces on the chessboard to redeem humanity. Yeah. And to set the captive free. Now, the difficult part is us understanding how he's going to do it and why he's doing it in the time frame that he's doing it in. I was having a conversation with one of my atheist friends, and the biggest thing that was most difficult for them to wrestle with is, or to accept, is that God's going to handle it all at one time. Well, yeah, at one time he will come back, right? Yeah. And at one time he's going to deal with all sin. He's going to deal with this. He's going to deal with, and he's going to flip the world on this. But he's just not. It's not happening now. Right now we're in process, and we're all a part of this narrative, and we all have our part to play. But to be a Christian is to be okay with accepting that he's going to do it when he wants to do it. And but that in the middle of the journey, he's going to be with us. Yeah. And sometimes he'll move the mountain. Sometimes he doesn't move the mountain. But what we know is that he gives us the strength to climb whatever mountain he doesn't move, or to persevere through any suffering that we may find ourselves in. And I would rather persevere through it with him than without. I mean, so I say all of that to say, the best thing we could do in the midst of the uncertainty, one is trust him, but also just play our part. Whatever part we have to play, just play it, knowing that our part is a part of a greater story that he's telling, that we may not fully understand right now, but we will one day.
Yeah. So
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And it's such an encouragement to believe that we have purpose, and to believe that God has put, I mean, there's a scripture, I don't know where it is. Look, I'm going to say maybe in Romans. I don't know. Isn't everything good in Romans? I don't know. But there's this scripture that God has placed us in places for that time. Yeah. And that is so comforting to me in a way, to know that when I don't understand, and when life doesn't seem fair, and it seems chaotic and messy and all the things that it is that for some reason God thought it would be fit for me to live in 2020 outside of Austin, Texas. Just to know that God is in all of that is so encouraging. There's a song. You like Elevation Worship?
Oh, I love Elevate. Yes.
So that Graves in the Gardens, there's this line in it I love that song so much. It says, he's the God of the mountains and the God of the valleys. And I just have been thinking about that so much, even with this concept that we're talking about, is that God doesn't change when things seem quote unquote good and when things seem quote unquote bad. That he is still God, and it can still be a part of our story, which is so hard for humanity. It's so hard for us to hold on to that. But you're talking about that in this book, and it's so good.
God can still do miracles.
That's right.
That's the biggest, I think that's the story. Like, it's, how do you get born into poverty, displaced, all these things happen, discounted, 25 years goes by, you reunite on national television. It's like, that's a miracle. Yeah. I think for me, that's one of the biggest things, is that people have belief that God can do the miraculous. He may not do it all the time, but he can. Yeah. And sometimes he's just waiting on us to give him the opportunity to do it. No matter where you are around the world, he's going, hey, I want to show myself strong. Give me the opportunity to do what only I can do. So that's one, that God is still in the miracle business. He still can do it. That's one. I think the second one is that God can take your mess and turn it into a message. You know, he can turn your mess into a message. I mean, if you let him. And I'll say that and that to me is a universal truth. No matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, he can turn your mess into a message if you let him in. Your story and your suffering will not be in vain. It will free someone and it will further the kingdom. Yeah. And he can do it if you let him in. That's the greater story that I'm saying. It's like there is a greater story for all of us. Yeah. He wants to turn our mess into a message and a miracle, whatever you want to go. If we let him in, he'll do it. He's waiting to do that. That's the second thing. The third thing and very last thing that I love for people to walk away with is that there is a formula for discovering purpose. And I don't know if it's a Greater Story chapter, the chapter named after the book, or if it's another one. I think it's in A Greater Story, the chapter. But in this chapter, I give a 3-pronged strategy for helping people discover purpose. One of life's greatest questions that we all have is, what's my purpose? Yeah. Right? And I've heard pastors and ministers and all of that, and people really, can I be honest, run around it. They just run around it. They do everything they can. Oh, wait, no, God's not really into everything you do makes sense. Oh, you can just kind of choose. And I agree. Like, I think if you're running after God every day, if you're leveraging everything you have for the sake of the gospel and the kingdom, yes, I believe God is pleased. And I believe that's a part of, obviously, the grand purpose. But I definitely believe that there are specific purposes for all of us, for specific people. I think the Happy Hour podcast was a large part of what God had ordained for Jamie Ivey. I just think it is what it is. Like, I don't think that you didn't just pop up one day and then all of a sudden God's like, oh yeah, let's do that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think he wrote that into your story. And so with that being said, I think he has a Happy Hour podcast for all of us. Now, it's not maybe a podcast, right? Yeah. Maybe it's a business. Maybe it's as simple as a blog. Maybe it's just playing a position at a church. Maybe it's starting, I don't know, but he has something specific for all of us. The question is how do we get there? And I won't unpack it, but I'll simply say it is when passion, gifting, and provision collide. And that's in the book. I break it down. And it's very important that if you don't read any other chapter, read the first, the last, and that one.
Okay. Don't tell people that, Sam. Tell them to read the whole book.
Read the whole book, right? Please. But definitely make sure you read that one, because if you're struggling with, God, who am I? What do you have for me? And what is my unique purpose and contribution to the world in light of the Great Commission? It's in there. Yeah. And I discovered this, and we led 70 young adults through this over 3 years. So it's tested, it's proven. We discovered this because I was depressed and church did not make sense. The Bible did not make sense. And I said, God, you got to give me the secrets to the kingdom right now, because if not, just take me home. That's where I was. So those are the 3 things I love.
And I think those are good. Thank you so much. And I think that last idea of like, what is my purpose? This is a lifelong question. There's no one that's ever walked the planet Earth that hasn't asked that question.
Right.
Now, I just made that up, but I bet that's true, Sam. Like, that's just what everyone's wondering. Like, what am I here for? What am I here for? What's my purpose in life? Yeah. Yes. Thank you for that. I am so excited for people to read this book. You do a great job at telling stories and encourage people to really find their part in their story that God has put them here for. And so it's encouraging. You guys, it's out already. Go pick it up wherever you get books.
Please.
Yeah, pick it up. Okay, Sam, tell me, what are you loving? What are you reading? What's that looking like in your world right now?
What am I loving? What am I reading? I'm in seminary.
Congrats.
So I'm getting a master's in biblical leadership.
Okay.
From Denver Seminary. I'll be done this time next year.
Okay, yeah.